Hi, I'm Ethan, and welcome to At That Breakdown, Episode 2, a show where I try to learn more about pitch sequencing and strategy by studying a series of at-bats. Today, we'll be looking at a series of at-bats between the Reds' Luis Castillo and the Cubs' Kris Bryant from last season. All right, let's get into it. I really appreciated some feedback that I got on the last video. I really am having a fun time making these and doing these breakdowns. I will be integrating a little bit of that into today's episode. As usual, the first half of this show-ish is going to be more of a scouting focus, looking at what Luis Castillo is going to try to do to Kris Bryant to get him out and what Kris Bryant might be looking for to try to succeed at the plate. So that'll be the first half of this, and then the second half will be actually analyzing the series of at-bats. So let's get right into it. So as we know, last season, Luis Castillo had very good peripherals, very good results as well. He is known for his changeup, which we will see here soon. Throws mostly a fastball, a changeup, and a slider. Let's take a look at his pitch arsenal. So he throws his changeup most often. These are overall averages. He also has two types of fastballs, a four-seam fastball and a sinker, as well as a slider that he throws about 17% of the time that you see there. So this is nice to see how the pitches move. It doesn't really tell us a couple other key things that we might want to know, such as, how often does he throw these pitches against righties, which Kris Bryant is. So I'm going to come over here to R, where I have downloaded a lot of this information already and done a little bit of code to figure out which types of pitches Luis Castillo likes to throw against righties. I've sorted it down here. So it looks like, according to Baseball Savant, throws about 27% four-seam fastballs, 26% sliders, 24% changeups, and about 23% two-seam fastballs. That's the same as this sinker that we saw here. For some reason, it's called a sinker on this website, and then when you download the data, it's called a two-seam fastball. Just to simplify things, I've already looked ahead at the at-bats that we're going to watch, no spoilers, and I've seen, I don't really want to spend too much time thinking about, well, is he going to throw a four-seam or a two-seam? To me, that difference isn't super important right now, so I will just tell you that every fastball that Luis Castillo throws to Kris Bryant during this series of at-bats is going to be a two-seam or a sinker. So that's just something to keep in mind. If it seems like I've ruled out the four-seam fastball, it's because I've looked ahead. So we know how Luis Castillo tends to throw, the distribution of pitches he tends to use against right-handed hitters. Let's move into this app. This is kind of a shameless plug here for this Shiny app that I made and that I'll link in the bio or in the description to this video. So the point of this app is to get at, that's classic, is to get at, for each pitcher, where do they throw their pitches that end up with the best outcomes. So the red pitches on average are the ones that we predict to have the best outcomes. Those are negative run values, which is good for the defense, the pitching team. And then blue is typically poor run values. That's not where the pitcher is having success. So we see that Luis Castillo's two-seam fastball better than, or at least predicted to have better results than 84% of other pitchers' two-seam fastballs in 2019. He does well kind of low, keeping that sinker low, maybe a little bit into righties. This is from the pitcher's perspective, so this side is into righties. That is the two-seam fastball. Let's look at the slider real quickly. The slider, really not good. It was better than 14% of pitcher sliders in 2019. Obviously, it's nice for him to have that third pitch because otherwise people could be sitting on that changeup that we'll see here soon. But this pitch, to me, looks like kind of a setup pitch. It's not really going to be the pitch that he's using to get out. It's maybe kind of a middle of the at-bat pitch. And then lastly, we are going to look at this changeup, which is pretty much an 80-grade changeup, better than 99% of pitchers' changeups in 2019. Everywhere is red. Really, wherever he throws it, he's going to have success. At least we would expect him to have success. Down in the zone is obviously better. He's not hanging it up here. That's not where changeups succeed. But yeah, we'll just keep that in mind. This is definitely his out pitch and a pitch that is going to be kind of his go-to. So I'm just going to break down a little bit more how his pitches play in the zone with his two-seam fastball. So in the last video, I was only looking at whiff percentage and batting average, but I got a good comment that swing percentage is very important too. So we're going to look at that now as well. So swing percentages on his two-seam fastball slash sinker. It gets swung at if it's kind of on the inner half. Doesn't really get swung on out here too often. The whiff percentage is, he doesn't really get many whiffs on this pitch. If he does, it's this kind of low and in pitch to a righty. It's kind of more cheeky than anything. It's not really like a dominant pitch that he can rely on. It's just kind of happening, a little bit every once in a while. So if we up the sample size, that trend is shown even more. So batting average, if he leaves it out over the plate, it's going to get hit a little bit. Let's increase the sample size as well. Maybe in on the hands, it's going to be okay. That's kind of what we saw on here with the two-seam fastball. Maybe this is kind of the in on the hands pitcher's perspective. These are catcher's perspective, by the way. So it's a little bit different. But yeah, so that's a two-seam. It's not really a weapon, but he needs to use it sometimes to keep everyone off the changeup. And he can have success with that pitch. But now let's look at the changeup. Swing rate is pretty high in the middle of the zone. Also pretty high down here, which is great because guys aren't really going to get good contact on this pitch if they hit it. Whiff percentage, just insane amounts of whiffs down here. You can compare that to league average over here, and we can see that this changeup is really just getting a ton of whiffs down in the zone, which is good for him. And then his batting average, when that changeup is put in play, it really has very good results. We could increase the sample size here, but it's still going to get very good results, exactly what he wants out of that changeup. So now we'll just take a look at the slider. It gets the most swings if it's kind of low and away to a righty. By the way, all of these graphs are just to right-handed batters that he's faced. All right, so whiff percentage. He's not really getting whiffs on the slider in the zone. He might be getting some whiffs on sliders out of the zone. So that's maybe something, but it seems like it doesn't happen too often. Batting average on the slider, if we up the sample size, if it's in the zone, it's probably going to get hit pretty well. And again, he might kind of get away with maybe some ground balls over here. So yeah, so that's pretty much what I have on Luis Castillo. Let's move into looking at Kris Bryant's stats. So in 2019, he had a good year. He put up pretty good results. His peripherals were down. So I don't think that impacts much of what we'll be looking at here, but interesting to keep in mind. Kris Bryant is known for his plate discipline. His walk rate here was about 10% last year, which is very good. It looks like I don't have a ton of experience looking at this page, but it looks like he's pretty good at taking pitches out here that are kind of borderline strikes. Or sorry, he's not very good at doing that. That's where he's losing run value. If that seems like it might be kind of a flaw in his game, that he's swinging at too many pitches that are right outside of the strike zone. Sorry, I kind of butchered that, but here we go. All right, so looking at two-seam fastballs, this minimum here is set at 5 against righties. Bryant really didn't see that many two-seam fastballs. I included sinkers, and he saw even fewer sinkers. So, but against these pitches, he's swinging a lot when he sees them, which makes sense. I mean, that's a fastball in the zone, so he should be swinging at those. He's not whiffing at those pitches, maybe a little bit down and in, this 29% versus this 15% at a fairly high sample size of 5 per zone. So Castillo might be able to steal some strikes in here. And then batting average, when he puts it in play, it's going pretty far. I think that these are probably, that's not really where you want to throw a sinker, so I wouldn't suggest that Castillo does that. But yeah, Castillo just might want to be a little bit careful with the two-seam because Kris Bryant looks like he's a very good fastball hitter based on these stats that we're looking at here. So against changeups, obviously he's not facing Luis Castillo's changeup very often, but so these numbers may not be super representative of what Castillo might be able to do with that changeup. But Bryant, typically swings at changeups in the zone. He swings about league average, a league average amount on changeups below the zone. Whiff rate, it's pretty league average here. he might be swinging and missing a little bit too much on changeups that are at the bottom of the zone, but still in the strike zone. Something to look for. And then batting average on changeups, he did not get a hit on a changeup outside the zone low all season. So that's, again, something to look for. I think this might be a good matchup for Castillo with a changeup. So lastly, looking at the slider, most sliders that Kris Bryant faced last year were probably better than Castillo's, like we saw from the app. But swing rate, he's swinging at this kind of hanging slider, which makes sense. That's where the league is swinging. He's pretty good at laying off this outside slider, so that's another thing to look for. Whiff rate, when he does swing on sliders down here in the zone, he's not connecting on them very often, which makes sense. I mean, it's hard to connect on a slider down here and a slider outside. So, I mean, that's not really surprising. And then lastly, with batting average, it looks like when he is putting this low and away pitch in play, it's pretty good. Even with the higher sample size, that's still happening. So, so there we go. So, all right, that is it for the scouting report. So if I had to kind of craft a scouting report here for Luis Castillo, I'd be saying let's throw that two seam kind of low in the zone and inside to Kris Bryant. Mix in that slider away every once in a while. Maybe keep it off the plate so that it doesn't get hit really hard. But we're really just setting up that changeup. Luis Castillo has shown that he's okay throwing that changeup a lot to righties 25% of the time. So that's a fair amount of time. But we're going to be trying to get outs with that changeup. So, all right, without further ado, let's dive into it. There's going to be 3 at-bats here, 9 total pitches. So the first one is top of the first, 1 out, 8 pitches in, kind of a neutral situation here. In this situation, all else being equal, I would think that Castillo is going to start him off here with a two-seam fastball. Let's see what happens. Okay, so he starts him off with a slider. So like we said, it's going to be fastballs and sliders that Castillo is using early in the count and then maybe change up late. So this pitch is really far outside, really not a competitive pitch at all. Let's look one more time at how Kris Bryant sees it. Looks like he sees it pretty early and is not really thinking about swinging it. So 1-0 count. Castillo would like a strike, would like to not go 2-0. I'm thinking maybe a two-seam fastball in this outer corner, somewhere in the lower half. I really doubt he goes slider again. And it'd be interesting if he went changeup here, but so I'm going to say two-seam. Let's see what happens. All right, so a 97-mile-an-hour two-seam fastball, absolutely painted on the corner of the strike zone. Not much Kris Bryant can do with that. Let's see it again. That's a very beautiful pitch. Yeah, Bryant really was not looking to swing at that. On 1-0, he's probably looking for a pitch he can hit. He might be looking for a fastball somewhere in the middle of the zone that he can hit, but he wanted nothing to do with that pitch. I'm sure he's happy to have a strike on that one and move on. So 1-1 count. Castillo just painted this fastball. He might be wanting to go change up here. That's obviously his bread and butter pitch. It's not like he has to be saving that changeup. He can probably have success with it if he throws it a couple times in a row. I don't think we'll see the slider again, so I think it's probably going to be a fastball again. Since he just had a really good pitch, he might try to do that again, maybe on the outer half. But I'd probably be expecting a changeup just kind of middle but low in the zone. All right, so there it was, the changeup, middle-ish, outside, low in the zone. I love it when I make a prediction and it's right. That's a good feeling. Let's see it again. Kris Bryant takes a hack. He's really not close. One thing I've been looking at recently is when a guy swings and misses, your video is not choppy. I'm just trying to scrub, by the way. When a guy swings and misses, is it because his timing is off, or is it because his barrel just kind of missed where the ball was? And here in this case, it looks like he's pretty on time. It's really hard to tell. I probably shouldn't be doing this because we don't have a side angle, so it's really hard to tell. But anyway, nonetheless, it's a whiff. Very good pitch, changeup. If I was Luis Castillo or the Reds pitch caller, on 1-2, I would almost definitely be going to this pitch again. Maybe that's what Kris Bryant's expecting, and for that reason, you shouldn't be throwing that pitch. But I would probably just say go with your bread and butter here if you're Luis Castillo. So let's see. And there it is. So it's out of the zone. I mean, if you're Kris Bryant, you have to be thinking that that pitch is coming again. I know you have to protect against the 97-mile-an-hour fastball, so it's easier said than done. But even though he knows it's coming, I think this pitch, it does a really good job of looking like it's going to be a strike. Let's see if I can pause it. Past this decision point, which is around here, I think that this pitch looks like it's going to be a strike and then dips down where at this point, we know as the viewer, this is not going to be a strike. It's probably going to go low. Kris Bryant's already mid-swing, and there's nothing he can do at this point. So 2 straight whiffs on that changeup, and Kris Bryant has struck out. So that's kind of an interesting at bat there. Bryant gets a little bit dominated. That first pitch slider was nowhere close, and then 97 down by the knees in the strike zone for a strike, and then 2 just nasty changeups that we knew was coming. I mean, that's what a pitch looks like when it has an expected results this like deep red. I mean, that's an 80 grade pitch, so kind of cool to see. All right, so I do not know what is happening in the game, this situation. Let's see if we can figure it out. There's no one on. This looks like the beginning of an inning. If there's no outs, again, I would think Castillo's probably not going to throw a first pitch changeup. He might go to that first pitch slider again, but he did that last time and it didn't work out. I'd be expecting a fastball here if I was Kris Bryant. All right, don't know who that guy is, but that was an excellent pitch. So basically the same pitch that Castillo threw to get back in the count against Bryant in the first inning is now the pitch that he uses to get ahead here in the second at bat of the game. So that was excellent. I'm glad me and Castillo are on the same page there. Kris Bryant does not want anything to do with that pitch. Let's see what happens next. So we know it's 0-1. I don't know where the score is, but we're going to assume that this is, again, neutral. It's not like Castillo needs a fly ball, needs a ground ball, needs a strikeout. He's just kind of trying to get an out here. So we already see, sorry, this clip started with like an interview, so I had to come to this part of the pitch. So we already can see that he's aiming low. Is he going to try to go with that fastball again? Is he going to try to go curveball? He's almost definitely not going to be trying to bring a backdoor slider out. So I think I'm going to rule that out based on how the catcher's set up, and that doesn't really make sense anyway. So is he going to try this fastball again, or is he going to go to that changeup that dominated Bryant twice? I'm thinking fastball here. And I'm wrong. It's a changeup. So this is Bryant's third time swinging and missing at that changeup. Let's go back and watch it one more time just because it's very beautiful. Oh, that's who that guy is. All right. Here it is. Looks like it's going to be a strike. And, it is a strike. It lands in the zone, but dropping 9 miles an hour off of that 2-seam fastball, and Bryant just swings and misses. I'm going to take this opportunity to go back one more time and look at Bryant this time. Again, I focus a lot on the pitchers just because the pitcher is the one in control, and that's what I know a little bit more about right now. So I'm going to go back and watch Kris Bryant here and see if we can see anything interesting. It looked like he put a good swing on it, but just was unable to connect or recognize it early enough that it was a changeup. And even if he did recognize it early enough, he might not have been able to hit it just because this is a really good pitch. So, all right, now we know it's 0-2. Castillo, he has had success with this inside fastball. Our scouting earlier indicated that that's not really an out pitch. Castillo has had 3 whiffs in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pitches on the changeup right here. Might he be trying to do that again? I would say yes. That's kind of what I would be calling here. Castillo's at 44 pitches through only 3 innings. He's trying to get some outs. There's no use in wasting a pitch, trying to change eye level, anything like that. I think you go for a changeup here. Let's see if the pitch caller agrees. Absolutely, he does. So we get a 4th whiff in 7 pitches, 4 for 4 on whiffs, 4 for 4 whiffs on changeups. I'm going to go back and show it again. from the beginning. It's a very good pitch. And notice how instead of being down, he kind of puts it like away, almost like a, you know, this is typically where sliders succeed, but this pitch is just so nasty that he's able to throw that changeup out here, and Bryant's just not, hasn't timed it up, hasn't figured it out. So let's watch it again. Yeah, that's what a dominant pitch looks like. So we are now coming into the third at bat of the game, third and final for this matchup and for this video. So we have top of the sixth, 1 out, Reds up 3, and Castillo's only at 76 pitches. So again, this situation looks pretty neutral. I think a lot of the situations that I'm going to be analyzing with starting pitchers are going to be pretty neutral unless he's working out of a jam. But so let's debrief on first pitches. We in the first at bat, we had this outside slider that was nowhere close. And then on the second at bat, we had this nice little 97 or 96 mile an hour two-seam fastball right here on this inside corner to get that strike. So against Bryant, and you know, this would be great if we were watching the game and we know how his pitches have been doing in the non-Kris Bryant at bats. We obviously don't have time to do that right here, so we have to kind of fill in the blanks. But again, it seems like Castillo here has kind of turned into a two-pitch pitcher. He's either going to throw this changeup or he's going to throw a fastball, and the changeup is the out pitch, so I don't think he's going to throw that on the first pitch here. So I'd be expecting another fastball right here. Okay, so to me that looks like a slider. Just want to make sure. I'm going to look at that again. So it's definitely not a fastball, so I was wrong. 88 miles an hour. His slider and his changeup are almost identical in velocity, so it's a little hard. And his slider moves is kind of more like a gyro slider, as we saw here. It's really has almost no horizontal movement and almost no vertical movement when you take out the effect of gravity, which is about 40 inches downwards. So anyway, kind of hard to spot a slider, but his changeup really has that downward bite. Let's watch it again. To me, that looks like a slider. I think he's going back to what he did in the first inning with that first pitch slider, and you know, again, not a great result outside. It's a 1-0 count, and you know, if you're cheating, you see that this is the last pitch of the at bat, so not really much, you know, in the way of what should we set up next. But I would think that Castillo is going to be trying to put a pitch in the zone. Typically, you know, historically in this video, he's gone with this really hard two-seamer low and in. So Bryant might be looking for that, or he's going to be looking for this changeup, maybe in the zone. Changeup out of the zone doesn't make much sense on 1-0 if you're trying to make sure you get a strike. Because if Bryant doesn't swing, it's 2-0. So let's see what happens. I am probably just going to predict based on everything that's happened in this game that we're going to see a fastball here, and knowing what we know that Bryant hits it. You know, we'll see if he's able to turn on it and get a hit, or if it's going to be, you know, in all likelihood, a ground out. Or a single up the middle, Ethan. Kris Bryant's a very good hitter, and he can turn around a 96 mile an hour fastball if he's looking for it. Jeez. All right, so let's see it again. We know it was a fastball. It was 96. I'm going to try to pause when it's near the zone, see where it was. That one did kind of hang out over the plate. So I'm going to go back again. We can see that the catcher is setting up inside almost more. Well, this is, you know, I think that the catcher is setting up in the zone here. It looks like he's out of the zone because because we are watching from kind of an offset angle. But from Castillo's view, I think that the catcher is setting up in the zone right on this corner, the place where he's had success. And Castillo just leaves it out. Oops. Again, your video is not choppy. I'm just doing a very bad job of clicking around. So I'm going to go back to the start. I apologize. Here's the hit in its entirety. Watch how it doesn't get this corner. It comes out over the plate, and Kris Bryant's ready for it. All right, sweet. So to recap, we have seen that Luis Castillo has a very good changeup, that Kris Bryant has trouble hitting that said very good changeup. Luis Castillo did a really good job of locating those two fastballs low and in to get ahead in the count, which we kind of saw might happen with this initial scouting report. I'm very happy when our initial scouting report kind of is what actually happens in the game. That makes me feel really good. And yeah, so that's kind of all I have for this. I appreciate any feedback you guys have. I'm doing this to learn. So if you see something that I didn't, or if you have any suggestions on something I should do next time, please let me know in the comments or on my Twitter, which I will link in the description. So thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.